Just a quick intro. This is embarrassingly or insultingly short of an intro because I want to get Steve up here and talking and me sitting. So Steve, he was previously with Entrada, went to Accenture after that, Hobson's in structure, and then now he's at Campfire, where he is the CEO and co-founder. You're just, correct me if I've got some of this information wrong, for about 3 years now, just over 3 years after you were founded, growing your team around the United States. And you just launched this is from your post, a new Campfire, which I am pumped for you to introduce. So without further ado, please welcome Steve Arntz to the stage.
Thanks, Pete. I gotta hold this, yeah? Okay, cool. Well, this will be fun. I'm gonna sit down at this desk. I was fired from Entrada. Anybody know Dave Bateman? Couple, just a few. He fired me. 20 people got fired that year, I think. So we have a club. Yeah. So I'm going to show you Campfire, because guess what? I'm the food sponsor, so I get to. Normally they don't let the speakers do that, but we have a new website, which hopefully is nice. It's not loading. It's the Wi-Fi's fault. Oh, that sucks. Let me just go into the platform. So Campfire, you can create an account now for free, which is fun. But I already have one, as shocking as that may be. And here we go. We are a leadership development platform. We train managers at a whole bunch of companies here in Utah and around the world. And there's a catalog of content. So here's some of the topics that we teach people about: change, strategic thinking, inclusion, conflict. Conflict's one of my favorites. So you drop in here. People can register for cross-company sessions, so people from other companies join them. And then we built a video platform to replace Zoom, because Zoom sucks for learning. It really does. Has anybody been on a learning on Zoom? Do you enjoy it? It's like okay, right? You have a Zoom. You were at Zoom. You're Austin, aren't you? What's up, Austin? This is Austin. Zoom went through layoffs. Austin's looking for a job, and he's an incredible product person, yeah? So shout out to Austin. I've heard like he's incredible at product, and he just came from Zoom. So we should get him. I didn't know him before today. In fact, let's not make this too weird, but let's see. Austin, there's Austin. Steve, meet my dear friend Austin, and there he is. And I'm making fun of Zoom, and he's like, you're right, it sucks for learning. He nodded when I said it. He's like, it's just really bad for that. So we're going to boot this up real quick and show you our Zoom replacement, and then I'll start talking about something else. So here we go. The internet's not great here, though, for real. It's a little slow. Oh, wow, there I am. Go ahead and join. Yeah, it's the internet. It's bad. But we've integrated content into it, so you don't have to do screen sharing or anything. Facilitators have notes, so they can guide sessions really easily. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can show the content. And then we have a whole bunch of administrator tools for different activities. So beautiful content, and then some stuff you can do with it. So let's see here if the internet will help me. I'll start the meeting. Nobody's going to join, but things like private reflection. So, hey, I'd like you to reflect on this, and instead of grabbing a piece of paper or notepad, you just go reflect right here. And then once you're done reflecting, you go to a breakout. And breakouts, you can tell your Zoom friends, like, why don't you have the prompt in the breakout room? That would be cool. Instead of us having to do weird crap to get messages to people, like send pigeons and stuff. And then like this, we can do a response wall. So this is cool. I can't post a response because I'm the facilitator, but a wall of responses as people kind of participate in an activity. But it's all integrated with the video, the content, all that. So that's Campfire. That's it. And then I'm going to talk about not Campfire for a bit. But this is kind of the core. So I'll segue into this. Is there there's not a clicker or anything, so I guess I'll just sit here, which will be fine. Is there a clicker? Maybe not. Clicker? No? Okay. I'll just sit here. But I believe very deeply that the biggest problem in the world is our inability to connect with ourself and to connect with others. Like, truly, at my core, believe that is the biggest problem in the world. And so I'll just give you a little bit of evidence, and then I'll jump into my talk. So I wish I could have a whiteboard or use my hands and stuff, but I can't. In 1990, Democrats and Republicans were this close together. So the mean political viewpoint, Democrats and Republicans were this close together, okay? Then we get to 2000, still this close together. Then we hit internet and social media galore, and we're this far apart. The mean political views, right? Oh, this is great. I'll have a clicker for the main portion of the session. So is that going to work? Amazing. Hey, look at that. And social media has just created this polarity of viewpoints. It's insane, and it just manufactures this chasm between people. And so Campfire's mission is impossible to achieve, but it's to connect the world with themselves and with others, so that basically we're like one single united organism, one big happy family, right? And we think that can happen through connected conversations. And so today I'm just going to help you to connect with yourself, connect with each other here, and then hopefully widen your viewpoint in terms of how you connect with each other at work, and as leaders you connect with people. But because this is a marketing event, it'd be interesting maybe at the end when we have questions, there's questions at the end, yeah, to kind of tie in some brand stuff, because obviously Campfire is an interesting brand use case. I'd love for you all to beat it up and kind of understand some of the reasons why we do certain things, but it's a fun marketing case study as well. So anyway, I'm going to stand up now and we'll talk connections. So reset here. Let's see, does it work? No, hopefully I don't advance. Okay, so I want everybody to close their eyes. And I am watching, so I can tell, because I'm going to keep my eyes open. Okay, so everybody's got their eyes closed. I want you to we'll do a little meditation stuff here. So just get present. Just notice the way you're connected to the chair and the floor. Just kind of, and then let's take 3 deep breaths together. So. Keep your eyes closed, and I'm going to take you through 3 questions. So, first question, what are you feeling right now? I didn't ask you how are you or how are you feeling. It's what are you feeling. I want you to name the emotion. Get as specific as you can. Try to narrow in on it. Next question. What are your distractions today? What are the things that are most likely in your brain potentially keeping you from being present here? And then the third question I want you to answer is, who are you? Kind of a weird question. Neuroscience, other sciences teach us that we're not the same today as we were a week ago, and we're not going to be the same in a year as we are today. Our identity is fully changing. our physical makeup fully changing. Who are you today? How would you describe that identity? Okay, turn to somebody. What did you notice as you checked in with emotions, thoughts, and identity? Connect with each other. All right, let's wrap in 10 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. All right. This clicker is not the best. Is it like laser activated? Yeah. I don't know. Here we go. Let's just move this over here and I'll just use the arrows.
So it's proximity.
Oh, is it?
This hub thing freaking sucks. The clicker's
So if I'm here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Thanks, Pete. Pete's the best. So the last time I gave this talk was at Hale Center Theater a couple Fridays ago. And one of the women was like, well, that sucked. She's like, I didn't realize how sad I was. And then she was like, it's really good, though. Like, I needed to feel that. But she was crying, like, in this room. She's like, that sucked. So hopefully you noticed something. I want you to close your eyes again. And I want you to think of someone on any team you identify with being on. Could be a family, a work team, could be a sports team, could be any team that you want to choose. And just pick a person. Get them in your mind, their name, get their face in your brain. And then we're going to go through the same questions. What are some of the things right now in their life that they are feeling? How close can you get to that feeling of empathy for this human being? What are the distractions in their life right now? What are the things that are weighing on their brain? And then I want you to now work through a list of things that come to mind when you think of who they are, their identity. Okay, so now you've done this for somebody else, with somebody else here. You can open your eyes. Here's what they might be feeling. Research from Cohen and Keltner gives us 27 categories of emotion. If you look up Better Up, list of emotions, Google that. They've categorized thousands of emotions. Thousands, which is crazy. There's another article I like from Healthline about emotions. I think there's 54 emotions that they've listed in 4 different categories. But these are the different emotions they could have been feeling. I don't know if everyone has this vocabulary of emotion. Like, people don't have a very strong emotional vocabulary. It's like, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm mad. But what's crazy is we all kind of expect people at work, like, the HR leaders, the bosses, they're all like, let's just have fun, let's enjoy our work, right? But guess what? Enjoyment's probably 20% of the time at best. As shocking as that may seem, we're feeling these 5 categories of emotion. So checking in with yourself, you're usually going to feel some element of those 5 things, and they break down further into these other categories as well. In terms of distractions, we often associate distraction with something bad. Distraction is kind of neutral. Like, we're just distracted. We're always distracted. There's always something in our brain that's occupying it, that's wanting to pull us away to do something else, whether it's family or something else. Like, there's always those distractions present. And it's not always office politics, Netflix, sporting events, social media. These are some of the things that people are distracted by right now in our workplaces. And when we look at loss, I made these slides before the epidemic of layoffs that we're experiencing. And so when we see loss there, job loss is a very real thing happening to us or to people we know and love. But these are real distractions. Like, and we just had a freaking massive earthquake over in Europe and thousands of people dying. And like, there's just all of these things that could be distracting people right now. It's heavy right now. In terms of identity, like, I don't know how you categorize certain people, but let's pretend that we as leaders just show up. Let's say we lead a sales team. You just assume things about salespeople, right? Salespeople are sports-loving, closing, sociable, money-hungry individuals, yeah? All the salespeople you know? Pat on the back there. That's you, yeah? You're in sales? Yeah, it's like every salesperson is this, right? No, not true. I built a deck of cards while I was at Instructure, and it's designed to help people find their core motivations. And have a bunch of decks. If you're interested, message me on LinkedIn. But it's 54 words, and they're all core motivators for people. I had 200 conversations with salespeople using those cards. And going through the 54 motivators, one of them is money and rewards. So my hypothesis was that all of the salespeople would have that in their top 6 motivators, money and rewards. 20% of salespeople had money and rewards in their top 6, which was shocking to me. I was like, how are we going to make any money at Instructure if you're not motivated by money and rewards? Turns out that they're motivated by the same things everybody else is motivated by: impact, problem solving, mission, vision, purpose, trust, collaboration. All of these sorts of things are motivating these sales folks, and yet we're building systems and structures, and we're leading teams in ways that assume that if we just put a quarter in, we'll get $1 out. It's like, you're just coin operated, right? You are, right? Like, here's a reward, and you're like, yeah, go get it. Grow the business, right? We have to show up different as leaders. We have to be inclusive and understanding and thoughtful and really connect with people and their identity. We have to be able to ask them, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Who are you? If you don't ask those 3 questions as leaders, you're going to get nowhere. I promise you. I got this text message one day, this exact one. How are you? With parentheses, honest answers only. Has anyone ever gotten a text like this? It was surprising to me. Like, nobody raised their hand. And that's surprising to me. This is one of the most powerful text messages you can send, by the way, for real. Because 50% of people are just, they're going through hard shit. So, like, that parenthetical there just gives them permission to open up. Maybe somebody cares about me, right? I get this text message, and I look at my phone, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, who asks that? And so I started to check in with myself before I kind of learned about this check-in process. And I realized I was lost, I was alone, I was super scared. Because we had a business, Campfire, with 4 employees and no money. And we weren't making as much progress as I wanted to in our fundraising journey. And so I start to think about those emotions, and all of a sudden I'm sobbing, and I text him back, and I'm like, I'm lost, I'm alone, and I'm afraid. And he calls me, and we talk for 20 minutes. And I still have a picture, I should put it on this slide, of me sitting on my bathroom floor. There's a towel hanging behind my head, sobbing, because I took that picture and said, this is a moment I want to remember. A friend checked in with me, figure out how I was doing, and I think this is going to be a turning point for me. Because now I don't feel lost, I don't feel alone, and I don't feel afraid. Because he gave me some words of encouragement, some advice, some thoughts. He helped me to feel not alone, and he helped me have some perspective on the journey that I was on. This is the type of question that we need to be asking as leaders with our people. How are you? Honest answers only. Like, tell me, What's going on in your life? Russ Laraway. Anybody know Russ? He wrote a book, When They Win, You Win. He was the chief people officer at Qualtrics. He did research on manager effectiveness, and he found that the most important question for finding out if a manager is effective that you can ask a team that they lead is, do they care about you as a person? So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But this is one of those evidences that leaders can show of caring about people as a person. The reality is that everyone is somewhere on this continuum at any given moment. And spoiler alert, it's not always #winning. It can go up and down, fluctuates quite a lot. Let's talk about identity just a little bit. So one of my co-founders, her name's Marin Pearson. She's responsible for the brand. So gorgeous brand. There's not a customer that I meet with, a prospect that I meet with, that doesn't comment on the brand within the first 2 to 3 minutes of any sales call. Just, your brand is gorgeous. It speaks to exactly what you do. You help connect people around campfires. I just love it. Your brand is something that had attracted us to Campfire. And Marin created it. What's crazy is that, so she came from Lucid, and when she joined us, I told her the very first day, I need you to rebrand us. We need a new name. We had a name at the time. It was Book Club. Has anybody heard of Book Club? It's another company around here. They've raised 20-something million. David Blake started it. Degreed is the company that he initially started, and now he has 3 companies that he's the CEO of, which is fun. But he had Book Club, and we had Book Club, and we were like, geez, if David Blake has Book Club, we should probably change our name. Because he's got lots of money and he's been successful and all those sorts of things. And we called it Operation Get Off the Moon. Oprah's got her flag planted in Book Club, and so does Reese Witherspoon, and so does David Blake. And we're just like, let's get out of here. Let's get a new name. And so I said, Marin, we need a new name. And have you ever done a branding project? She says, no, never done anything with branding. How soon do you need it? I was like, we need a new name in the next 2 days. And she's like, that's a little crazy. I'll Google it, I guess, and maybe we can figure it out. And that's how startups work, so welcome to startups. And I said, cool, do we need to get together? She's like, no, are you crazy? We're in the middle of a freaking pandemic. Like, no, we're not getting together. Like, this was a month after it all blew up. You know, Rudy Gobert is like, licks the mic, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're crazy. And she's like, no, we're not getting together. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I could put a camera up on my whiteboard, and I'll have markers and stickies and stuff. Just tell me what you need me to do. She's like, there will be no markers. There will be no stickies. It's going to be different than you've experienced. And I said, well, tell me more. She's like, well, I'm introverted. I'm not big on this, like, social collaboration stuff. So we're going to have a Google Doc, and I'm going to have questions, and we're probably going to spend the entire day together, hardly talking at all. I'm like, that sounds amazing. You noted the sarcasm, obviously. And then we get together and we start doing it, and we start writing answers to these questions. And I still have this doc called Brandstorm, and if you want it, we can share it with you. And I think it's a really good guide to creating a brand in silence. We'd answer these questions, and then she'd say, okay, put an equal sign next to all of the responses that really resonate with you. And we put equal signs. We called that heat. And all of a sudden, this brand is emerging. We're getting jobs to be done, and emotional connection. What is the emotional connection you want to create with your customers? All of these sorts of things are starting to emerge in silence. No stickies, no whiteboard markers, right? And then we get to the name part at the very end, the end of the day, and Campfire just like freaking jumps off the screen. She has all of these ideas that are campfire, picnic table, park bench, all sorts of places where people gather, which is like the core function, job to be done of our business, right? And this deeply introverted woman with 3 male co-founders is leading us through this brand exercise in silence. And now we have this color purple that is also evidenced by her deep empathy for our customer base, which, by the way, is 85% women. And we end up with this brand that's just beautiful, that people love. And that's what happens when you say, okay, who are you? Are you deeply introverted, female, this team that you feel a little out of place with? Like, how do you want to show up? This is how I want to show up. Okay, let's show up that way. And then you get Campfire, right? Which we love. And then you get this. So, like, that partnership's one of the richest partnerships I've ever had in my career, because at different points when people have said, hey, Marin needs to speak up, I say, hey, you need to just listen better. She's a little different than you, and it's okay. So this is a fun part for me. So Marin's brought out a lot of the best in me, and a lot of that's because of the way that we've shown up for each other in that inclusive way. Nate Barrett's here. He's usually the one I talk about here. When I say share about someone, he's in the back there. He's bald. He's got glasses. He's a cool guy. But Nate's brought out the best in me through, and this is where I share my In-N-Out story. So Nate would take me to In-N-Out, as he was my manager at Instructure. And he would take me to In-N-Out. And 80% of the time when he took me to In-N-Out, it was because I'd done something good. It's like, let's go to In-N-Out. Let's celebrate something. And then 20% of the time, it was not so good. It's like, I'm really disappointed in you. I remember one time in particular, I don't know if you remember this. He probably remember this. I guarantee he remembers this. We're driving down 215 so 215 on the south end. And we are going from Cottonwood Heights over to Fort Union. We're going to In-N-Out there. And we're halfway between Cottonwood Heights and Fort Union. And he's like, Steve, I'm really disappointed in you. And I'm like, oh no, I don't even know what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's about to say. And he's like, I'm going to share the whole story. I usually don't, but he's here. I had made all of the salaries on our team transparent through some accidental funny mishap, and caused a real mess for Nate because salaries weren't aligned in a way that made sense across the whole team. Somebody was upset, and so Nate took me to In-N-Out, and he shared some feedback with me. And but the point of the story is that he always took me to In-N-Out, whether it was good or bad, and we always washed it down with a burger and shake, which was like, I always knew he cared about me. Whether or not I was going to get beat up or get praised and recognized, I always knew that Nate cared about me. Always. And so what I want you to do for a minute is just talk to each other. Share a story, very brief. Like, just see if you can cut through it real fast. Share the name of a person and what they did to bring out the best in you. Okay? So go ahead. Pair up again. Go. All right, 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. All right. Wow. Everybody's got like good mental clocks. When I said 15, everybody just like converged on done. Cool. Hopefully you felt a little bit of what I'm about to describe here as you talked about some of the people who've impacted you and influenced you in these positive ways. I would guess that those people who brought out the best in you are these types of connected leaders that we're talking about, who care about you as people, who understand a little bit what you're feeling, what you're thinking, who you are. So I'm going to talk about a campfire. I won't make you close your eyes this time, but however you can, go with me into the mountains. We're not big on like Boy Scout style camping at Campfire. Our brand is much more of an Airstream brand. Let's get in the Airstream and glamp it up instead of, camp it up on the pads and mats. But we're in our Airstream. We're doing it fancy and nice, but we're in a really cool remote place. And we get out. Maybe there's 6 or 8 of us. And it's still not dusk yet, but it's starting to get there. And so we're like, okay, it's going to start getting cool. Maybe we should get a fire going, right? And there's a few of us, so we all start to go gather different things. And I'm the one that always just like, I'm going for the lighter fluid. Like, let's make this easy. Get the lighter fluid. Somebody's got toilet paper. Somebody's got some kindling, some sticks, some logs. We've brought all sorts of different things together. So here's the first part of the metaphor. Everybody brings something to the table, to the center, and we all put it in the center. Stick it there. I got the lighter fluid on there. We light it on fire. Then it goes real big, right? And the flames go big at first, and it's hot, and step back, right? So there's this moment of maybe expansion of the group there. And then it starts to simmer down a little bit, enough that we can grab the sticks. And for me, I'm like, forget dinner. Let's just go straight to the marshmallows. I'll do a whole bag, golden brown, and then maybe we'll get to the s'mores at some point. But people are doing s'mores and hot dogs and foil dinners and all that sort of thing. And that starts to get some of the energy up, and people are talking and having conversation. And we start to build some trust and connection there. But we haven't gotten to that point. It's like that really cool connected point. The stars come out, the sun goes down, it starts to get darker, the fire simmers down. It's still hot, but you have to get in closer. So now you've got 6 or 8 people who are now in pretty tight. So now we're connected pretty tight. And then meals are done, and it slows down. And for a minute, you just kind of like listen to the crackle and pop of the fire. And then conversation starts. And that's like one of the safest spaces that I can imagine at that point. No matter who you're there with, you have an opportunity now to kind of slow it down and connect. And what I've noticed when being around campfires is that I often don't ever look at the people around the fire. I just stare straight into the center of the fire. And yet I'm still connecting very deeply with the people around as I listen to their stories, hear their experiences, their ideas, their thoughts, all of that sort of thing. This is what we call a campfire culture, this place of like immense psychological safety to where you feel like you can just bare your soul. Something about being centered, being in a circle, these symbols, these things, they actually create this space and this safety. We don't light fires in our workplaces and slow things down quite like this. You don't? You're laughing. But no fires in the workplace. So how do you create that safety in work? Amy Edmondson, anybody heard of her? No? All right. Amy Edmondson has studied psychological safety for 25 years. She's maybe the best at this in the world. She's at Harvard, and she gives us 3 keys, and I always forget them, but I'm not going to forget them today. Number 1 is if work is learning, you create more safety. So if people think of the work that we're doing as a learning experience and opportunity, you create more safety for the people that you work with. Number 2, acknowledge your fallibility. So if leaders are not in a disingenuous or inauthentic way, but in a very authentic way, acknowledging their mistakes and owning the things that they're learning and making mistakes with, that fallibility creates safety. We all make mistakes, that sort of mindset and idea, if that's pervasive throughout your culture. And number 3, if you have a culture of questions, so people asking and answering questions regularly. So again, to repeat those, you've got work is learning. Number 2, acknowledge your fallibility. And number 3, be in a spirit of always asking and answering questions. That's the type of thing that creates that safety. In terms of being more connected leaders, what we've learned through Amy and others, and through our experience with Campfire during and past the pandemic, humans have this deep need to connect. That is just something that is true. I'll share some more on that in a minute. Number 2, managers are absolutely essential and key to growing connected and growing companies. And number 3, the future of work is really built on connected leadership. So in the world of ChatGPT and AI and all of these sorts of things, we have to continue to lean into those things that make us most human. Like what sets us apart as humans. And one of those things is the ability to authentically and genuinely connect with one another. As leaders and just as humans generally. Has anybody heard of Vivek Murthy? He's been kind of doing some fun stuff lately. He's the Surgeon General for the United States of America. The reason we know Surgeon General is because of the Surgeon General's warning, right, that we all know about, that's on cigarettes. And he recently put a Surgeon General's warning on work. Pretty cool. Work is killing us, he said. And he wrote a massive paper on it. You can go read the Surgeon General's Guide to Wellness in the Workplace. But basically the research says is that loneliness and isolation and all of these other sorts of things are creating this really sad situation where work is actually, it's killing us. It's taking years off our life. And some of that is because of this. So before the pandemic, he was studying loneliness, doing research on loneliness. And then the pandemic hit, and he's like, wow, this is good timing for my book. But this is what he was writing about, is that people are just not connected. And it's killing our creativity, and it's actually more damaging to our health at the moment. Loneliness is more damaging to our health at the moment than heart disease. It's crazy. So more stuff on connection. I talked about caring leaders. I talked about, what's his name, Russ Laraway at Qualtrics. If you look at these 5 things here, they're all tied together. A caring leader establishes good expectations. I care about you enough to tell you what I expect of you. A caring leader talks to you about your career development and potential and opportunities. A caring leader knows you well enough to identify those meaningful work opportunities. A caring leader supports your well-being. So really, like, so much of what was driving people out of the workplace. So McKinsey did research right at the beginning of the pandemic, said, why are people switching jobs? And this was the big reason that they were switching jobs. Uncaring leaders, a lot of which comes from this connection that we're talking about. Just to bring it back to the beginning, are you asking those questions? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What might be distracting you? Who are you? We did our own research. This was at the end of 2020, so still pretty hot pandemic time. And we talked to 67 talent leaders, head of talent at Tesla, at Johnson & Johnson, Lululemon, and then some smaller companies, a lot of local startups, 67 companies. And we asked them, if you had $100, where would you spend it from these 7 problems? So you have 7 problems to spend $100 on. Which would you spend the $100 on? And 85 of the dollars on average went to manager effectiveness. And we were curious about that because I don't remember, if you remember 2020, George Floyd in the spring and a pandemic, and we're thinking, diversity and inclusion, mental health and well-being, productivity and focus. There's a lot of challenges out there that we thought they'd want to spend more money on, but they wanted to spend it on manager effectiveness. And when we asked, when we dove deeper, it was always a connected manager, a manager that's really well connected with their team, will have their finger on the pulse of all of these things and be able to influence them really, really well. So help us make great managers who are connected leaders. You'll solve the rest of these problems. Let's see. I'm almost done. I'm going to skip that. So how do you boost connection? These 3 things. So give a voice to everyone. So talking about Marin again, who was the leader that built our brand. Marin still doesn't speak up, We're still using writing mechanics to bring her voice into the room. We still do a lot of alone together work. We have so many ways to bring her voice and elevate her voice in the room, but we're not trying to change Marin. We're not trying to like make her extroverted. We're trying to lean into the fact that she has a voice that shows up in a different way. How are you giving voice to others on your team? Prioritizing connection. So that check-in that we did at the beginning, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Who are you? Microsoft does a version of that. Nike does a version of that with their senior leaders. The third question is usually, what are your intentions for this time and space? So you get it. Imagine getting into a team meeting, five or six people, and instead of diving right into the agenda, you say, we're going to check in. And somebody's like, well, what is that? And we're going to talk about what are we feeling, what are we thinking, and what are our intentions for the space, and we're all going to answer. If you're new to that team, you might be like, holy crap, this is going to take a lot of time. Are we going to do this every meeting? And the answer is yes, they do it every meeting. And it's reduced meetings by 30% at Microsoft, and meeting time by 30%. Why? Because they actually care about each other. They're kind of connected in with how people are feeling, what they're thinking about, what they might be distracted by, all those sorts of things. And speed, it just makes things move faster. Trust builds, connection builds, speed to execution builds. So prioritizing connection, and this is one of the ways, is just to ask these questions. Send these messages in Slack. Pull up for a minute. Ask somebody how they're doing. Those sorts of things make a huge, huge difference. And then in terms of helping everyone feel seen, there's a whole ton of different ways that you can do this. But one of the most important is to just make sure people are recognized for the work that they do, and not in the way that makes sense to you, in the way that makes sense to them. So there's a woman in our company, her name's Camara. Camara did this illustration. Every illustration you've seen, she's done. She does beautiful illustration work. I shouldn't have told you her name because you might go try to hire her. She's really good. But Camara doesn't like to be recognized publicly when she's in the room. So she's cool with me doing this right now. She's not cool with me doing it at an all hands. So I used to tell everybody all the time, like, Camara's work is beautiful, and like in all hands every time, just like, look at what Camara did. And eventually I noticed her discomfort, and I pulled up with her and I said, hey, how do you really like to be recognized? She's like, just one-to-one would be great. And in big rooms as long as I'm not there. So making sure people they feel seen. Ask somebody, how do you like to be recognized for the work that you do? And then after they tell you, then recognize them for something that they do. But help people to feel seen. You saw the platform that we built. The last thing I like to do is have you pull out your phone. So do that right now. Get on Slack or text message or whatever. And you've got a few choices. You can say, how are you? Question mark, in parentheses, honest answers only. Pick somebody, send that message. Send a thank you. So help somebody to feel seen. Thank you for, send that message. So I'll just wait. Everybody send a message. Connect with somebody. You can apply the principles of this campfire right here, right now. I'll put down the mic and do it too. Well, I can keep the mic. Let's see here. I'm going to text my mom. I think I left 15 minutes for questions. Did I, Pete? Cool. Just to cap it off, just please, 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 if nothing else, just if you take away only one thing from this, I hope you will try to make one relationship, just one relationship, a little bit more connected, where you invest in these questions, these two specifically. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? And just really, really deeply care in one relationship about the answers to those questions. And you'll start to see that influence the rest of your life. So thanks for spending time with me today. Yes, David.
So I have two quick questions, and they're both not related at all.
Oh, wow, that's fun.
Okay, so one is using the concept of a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you have too much smoke around the campfire? 'Cause doing what you're trying to do here, that's number one. Number two,
Mm-hmm.
it sure seems to me like this could be used by an organization to connect with their customers and their clients.
Mm.
Are you seeing any of your clients doing this?
Mm-hmm.
To connect with consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So two different, totally different. You can answer one.
So the smoke one, is that like, is this literal? Like, you have smoke problems with your campfires when you go out camping and you want to know how to handle it?
It's always people have to move because the smoke gets in their eyes and they can't breathe. So whatever it might be in real life,
Mm.
crap happens, right? It
Mm-hmm.
gets in the way because it's hard to breathe. It's whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. What do you do then when materials or debris gets in the way of what you're trying to accomplish as an organization?
It's really good. What is the smoke then that keeps us from connecting? Give me an example that you. I'm going to put the question back on you. What's some of the smoke that keeps us from connecting in our organizations, David?
Well, you listed a couple. I can do that. Sorry, because I know you like to record stuff. I think part of the smoke can actually be office politics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps somebody's their emotional needs to be right all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or to beat people up, right? Or maybe there's stress in the organization because everybody knows that
Mm-hmm.
they're running out of dry powder.
Yeah.
And it's a crappy time to be raising money. And gee, am I going to have a job in 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever?
So I think, like, creating a campfire culture at scale in your company is not often within your influence, your circle of influence, if you will. And so I think that wherever your circle is, that's where you should lean into creating this kind of culture of connection. That smoke is going to be outside your control if it's outside of your circle of influence. And you're going to be a little frustrated, blinded by it, choking on it, all those sorts of things, inevitably. And so I would say you start where you have control. And if that isn't just one relationship, build that, you know? And if you are the leader of a team of 5 or 6, you can create that feeling on that team. If you own a company, you can create that feeling top down for the whole company. But start where you have influence and you can control the smoke is probably what I'd say. Yeah, yeah. And then your second question was, are people using campfires to connect with their customers? Well, we are. We've installed, this is fun marketing stuff, but has anybody heard of community-led growth? Yeah, it's getting bigger. There's communityled.com is a fun website. There's like a community-led growth charter that you can sign and things. And then there's a book put out by the platform ComSoar called the Community Engagement Playbook. It's a 76-page. It's beautiful. It's incredible. But that's the engine that we've installed at Campfire for growth. And we started it about 3 weeks ago, and we have 250 community members and growing very, very fast, about 50 applications a day. And then those community members, about 20% of them raise their hand and say, I want you to sell to me, which is awesome. And then we make the community a safe space where it's a no sales zone. So on the way in, we ask, can we sell to you? And if they say no, then we just let them into the community, and then eventually intent and demand emerges from that. But what's really cool is we're using the platform to get our customers together to solve problems with each other. And so inside the community, the campfire mechanic is what we're using to get our customers to collaborate with each other, to ideate, to share their ideas about our platform, our business, everything else. And so, at some point, if our business in its primary use case takes off in the way that we hope, then I could imagine a lot of people using our platform and some of our tools to install similar community-like mechanics to work with their customers as well, to answer your question. So, other questions? Purple is the best.
It's lavender today.
Okay. The hat is lavender too?
I don't know.
Okay.
Just went well with the outfit. This is fascinating stuff, and I really appreciate just the tone and the energy that you brought into the room. So just want to give you acknowledgement of that. Thank you. So you mentioned your brand leader, Marin, and how she's more of an introvert. How did you empower her to sort of be a leader in her position, and what type of communication style would you suggest to somebody who doesn't respond to like, hey, like, you're Nate, is it Nate? Like, dude, I'm disappointed in you. And he knew that would, you would get a reaction out of that. Somebody else might have, like, if I said something like, dude, this is a really crappy job you did, they would be really, hurt by that and would affect their performance. So what's the best way of communicating on their level, I guess?
So first off, I'd recommend a book, if you haven't read it, by Susan Cain. It's called Quiet. The subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking. And she has a TED Talk on introversion. If you don't want to read the book, you can watch the 20-minute TED Talk. The book is phenomenal. So it's not like Start With Why, where, you should have just watched Simon's TED Talk instead of read his book. I don't know if you love that book. I'm sorry. Not sorry. It's one of those TED Talk instead of books, but this one is not. Read Susan Cain's book. I was crying in the first 2 chapters because I was like, holy crap. Like, imagine a moment where you realize that you were like deeply racist in the 60s. And you're like, holy crap, I am racist. Like, how emotional that might make you if you were in tune to that, right? That's how I felt reading this book. Because I was like, holy crap. There's like a whole group of people who show up this way who are completely isolated from our systems. Like, I'm crying. She's like telling me all of the ways in which we've engineered a system for extroverts. Like, the whole freaking game is engineered for extroverts, right? And so read that book. Number 2, it's not nearly as much about how to communicate with them as it is about how to listen to them communicating to you. So I'll give you one story. We went to a board meeting, and Marin came to the board meeting, and afterwards, our investor, is this being recorded? This is being recorded, isn't it? And like shared online and stuff. Ah, crap. I'll tell the story anyway. Our investor was like, he told me, that can never happen again. And I'm like, what? Like, Marin needs to talk in the room. That can never happen again. And Marin was there, right? Sitting next to me. Anyway, we get out into the parking lot, and she bursts into tears. And we start talking about it. I'm like, I can help you be more extroverted. And she's like, you did this. And I said, what did I do? And she said, I asked you to help prepare me with just some questions that would be in the room. And you told me, it's just a casual lunch. Don't worry about it. You'll be able to jump in where you need to. And, me, extroverted me, is like super comfortable with that. Go with the flow, right? And Marin's, she wants to be ready. She wants to take some time and think through some things before she's put on the spot. And she's like, this is your fault. And no, I don't want you to teach me to be extroverted. I want you to show up better for me with my introversion. And so in that same stretch of 2:15, her and I were on the phone. And that's when I committed to read that book with her. So we read Quiet together. And that's when I started to listen to how she would like to show up. And so it's, I hope that isn't too harsh, but it's not about how you communicate with them. It's how you listen to them. They'll tell you. No matter what type of personality style or way they might express, just ask people, and then listen. So, Austin. My new friend Austin from Zoom.
Thank you.
Which has an incredible product.
Not for learning, though. I loved what you said about the predictability of asking a manager, or asking direct reports, does your manager care about you? But up the line, when you're reporting up maybe to executives, are there KPIs or metrics specific to connection that an entire company is looking for, or is it more of a lagging measure? Is there any data driven to show not so much that it should happen, but that it is happening?
Well, definitely one-on-ones. So a lot of companies have talent management platforms that track one-on-ones and their occurrence. I would say that the frequency and occurrence of one-on-ones would be the most important thing for me to look at. If I'm like looking at, let's say I have 250 people in the company, I hope we're there, at some point in the next few years, and I'm looking and I'm like, I want to see, are we connecting? Like that's what I want to see first and foremost. Are leaders connecting with their individual reports? And if I see a drop-off this manager was connecting with everyone on their team, and now one-on-ones have become 50%, now 75%, now 80% less frequent, I'm worried. That relationship that's not good, right? So that would be one thing that I would look at. I definitely would not look at who's writing the most Slack messages, that type of stuff. That's probably, that's noise. There's no signal there for me. You could have a deeply connected leader who's top of the leaderboard on Slack. Have you all seen this? It's horrifying, these stats. You can go and see the leaderboard. I'm always at the top, and I'm like, what does that mean about me? I don't know if it's good or bad, So it's definitely not that. I would think that the one-on-ones happening. Now, if you let's pretend like benevolent dictator and trusting employees are like, okay, we want you to have all the information about all the things that are happening in our workplace, which we don't want that. We don't have that trust in our companies where we're like, okay, yeah, spy on us. I would want to know the types of conversations that those one-on-ones contain. And the conversations that I'd want to see from a connection standpoint are 3 or 4. I don't know how many I'm going to name, so it could be 5, but let's go through some of them. The first conversation that I think every manager needs to have with every new employee is hopes, fears, expectations. So we have every single new hire go through this where they have time to reflect before. So we share a doc with them as part of their onboarding. In fact, the first week of onboarding is quiet time. We give people things to read, things to write, and they just spend time. And then they share all their feedback on the business, because they've got that beginner's mindset and can give us all sorts of feedback on what we're doing as a company. But hopes, fears, expectations are 3. So what do you hope for in this role? What are you afraid of in this role? And working with me, your leader. And what do you expect of this role and of me, your leader? If this one conversation happened, universally across all companies, we would see regrettable attrition go down by probably 20%. You ask HR, what's the biggest problem? It's like, managers never freaking set expectations. They bring me problems. They're like, hey, you got to fire this person. And HR's like, did you tell them that that's what you expected of them? And the manager's like, no, was I supposed to? I thought it was in the job description. Come on, this is no-desk stuff. It's like, no, it's not. Tell them what you expect of them. They want to know. Do you mind if we sit down and just reset expectations with them? Then a manager, HR sits, resets expectations, problem gone. Crazy. They just didn't know. Hopes, fears, expectations, that's one. Number 2, how did you get to this place in your career? Tell me your whole life story, as much as you're willing to share. Where are you trying to get to? How can I support you in getting there? So a conversation about career development. And then a third conversation is regularly about their performance. Here's how I perceive your results right now. Those regular conversations. And then coaching conversations. So I can teach you coaching in 30 seconds right now. Grow is your model. You learn to ask someone what their goal is. You learn to ask them what the reality of the situation is. You learn to ask them what options they've identified as possibilities. And then you ask them what their way forward is. Never, ever, ever inserting your opinions or perspectives. They'll get there on their own. So if there's coaching conversations, career conversations, direction conversations, hopes, fears, expectations, like that's how I know that the company is connected in the right way. And then, connection around the team would be another element, but I won't go into that right now. But does that help? Yeah. We out of time? We're out of time. So thank you all.
So I've had the opportunity to join a number of Campfire sessions. One of the reasons I really wanted to bring Steve and Campfire here and is one, because at one of these previous events, I asked everyone, and I'm going to ask it now, how many have heard of Campfire before? Raise your hand. Okay. How many have actually experienced a Campfire session in the past? Okay. So we saw some of the technology elements of Campfire at the beginning. The feeling that hopefully you guys are walking away with at the end of this. And if you think for a minute, what was that peak moment for you today? What was that point that either inspired your mind, your heart to do something, to change something, to be something? That's what Campfire is. And while there's the amazing technology behind it, it is that connectedness of what Campfire really is providing. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share this experience with you guys. I'm just going to get really fast with a personal story. I'm going to get a little real here. In 2013 or so, I left, I had a job offer in Chicago to go work at an ad agency. And at the same time, I was just finishing up school, and I was running a video production company. And it was doing pretty well, and I thought I was going to go and have a career in film. And one of my clients, who worked at Deseret Book, Hunter Sabresos, he's now the CEO of Bacon, if you know Hunter, he said, come work with me. And I was like, oh, like, cool, awesome agency job in Chicago, or Deseret Book, Salt Lake City. And I felt like it was a pretty no-brainer for me to go to Chicago because I thought I was going into more of the ad agency world. And he said, listen, I've done the ad agency thing. I want you to stick with me. I promise I'm gonna make your time worth it. I'm dedicated to making it a great experience. So I decided to stick around. And I promise this story has a real point here. So I stuck around, and within 11 months, Hunter moved to Kenya, doing some really cool stuff, a brand called Bomba, providing water options, and anyway. So he ended up moving, and Deseret Book was going through some really challenging times, and so there were massive layoffs, 30% layoffs at Deseret Book. And I was part of those layoffs. And I sat there looking around, like, why am I on this side of the chopping block? Like, why am I here? And what can I do to make sure that next time I'm not on that chopping block? How can I make myself more valuable? But what I'm really going with this is after I got laid off, I had a baby on the way, a pregnant wife, had a house being built. And so that pressure as a sole provider, like, it was heavy. And I went into, the cycles of mourning, right? And part of that was getting down on myself. Like, I was not good enough to stick around. I was not good enough to, I got chopped. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there are people here, and there are people that that have recently been on that layoff experience. And if you've had that experience, or whether in the past or now, like, it can be heavy. And through that kind of that process that each of us experience a little bit differently, part of it is thinking, why, and maybe not everybody feels the same way at some point, but I believe that most humans would. most humans would, is why wasn't I good enough? Why is this happening to me? And what is it about me? And whatever stage people find themselves in during the layoff process or just life in general and the challenges that we all go through, my hope is that we can do what Steve led us through today and to be there for people. If we're going through some of those experiences ourselves, to try to find people that can be a support, because it can be very lonely and it can be really heavy. These experiences here, so kind of capping off the end of the story, is after I was laid off, I went into like full on like learning grow mode. I needed to sharpen up. I needed to find new skills. I needed to make myself more valuable. And part of that was coming to these events, and going to networking opportunities and to just learn as much as I could. And so I'm grateful that you guys are here, whatever environment or situation that you find yourself in. I'm grateful for you being here, and hopefully, as you experience today, my hope is that you feel welcomed and that you feel part of a community, this community, and that you feel like you do belong and that you have value. There are people who care and want to help, and who are willing to support you, and I hope that you feel that. Steve, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the experience we were able to join today. Go check out Campfire on LinkedIn, connect with Steve, and wherever you are in this learning and development journey, personal or within your company, and trying to be a more connected manager and more connected person. There are a lot of resources and people who are here to help. So big thank you again. And really quick, we've got an event coming up March 15th, I believe it is, with Burke Alder from Pattern. I think is he the CMO or VP of marketing? Can't remember. He's up there, but freaking incredible guy. One of the most genuine, awesome, talented marketers. So come hang out with us for that. Get registered for that. But anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for Steve. Another round of applause.